What if I told you you've never actually been talking to yourself? What if we've misunderstood self-talk this entire time? Don't believe me? Let me cook. When you were born as consciousness. And that consciousness has the ability to observe your thoughts. Most people think that when they have inner dialogue or talk to themselves, that it's two separate beings having a conversation. It's not. What's actually happening is the consciousness that you were born with is interacting with the constructed self. What is the constructed self? The entity. Remember, I told you your identity is an entity and that entity has a personality. Okay. So because the entity is producing thoughts based on your lived experience, the consciousness can observe them. I'll give you an example. If the thought arises that I'm going to fail if I start this business, the consciousness can do four things. You can question it, you can accept it, you can reject it, or you can redirect it. Now, if you've ever practiced meditation, you know that meditation is the process of separating yourself from your thoughts, where you allow your thoughts to float like a cloud. If you've ever done meditation, you know what I'm talking about, right? So in between that space lives those four things, okay? Consciousness, thoughts. The four things are: I can question, I can do what? Accept, I can reject, or I can redirect the thought. Now, let's break down the example of being a failure. The entity says, you're going to fail if you start that business. Consciousness will respond with, why do I believe that? The entity will respond and say, well, you failed the last time you tried that thing. Don't you remember? The consciousness becomes aware of this and says, well, does my past define my future? And the entity might say, well, you did fail. So what makes you think this time will be different? The consciousness can say, it will be different because I know now what I know now from my past experience. And this is inner dialogue. All that is happening is the entity is interacting with the awareness and the consciousness that you were born with. Now, what's interesting about this is this. The issue is not that we want to stop our thoughts, because thoughts are always going to be there. The issue is when you completely identify with the entity. There is no internal dialogue. There's no conversation happening. It's just an agreement. And the agreement would be, for this example, that I am a failure. See how important agreements are? They even affect your thoughts. Now, the process of awakening isn't that the entity's voice is going to disappear. It's that the other voice begins asking questions. I am going to say this, and I'm going to say this with every fiber of my being. Accept nothing, question everything. This is how you go through that awakening process. This is how you become woke, as they say, okay? When you are able to separate and live in a space of your higher consciousness, when you can actually separate yourself from the thoughts that you are having and recognize that I am not my thoughts. I'll say that again. I am not my thoughts. Live from that space. Inner dialogue is not two people, two separate beings having conversation. It is not. It is the consciousness that you were born with interacting with the constructed self. I hope this helps. Catch you in the next video.